At 7 o'clock, Ginny had finally finished. She smiled at her work, then pushed Hermione to the nearest mirror. "You're all set," she cheered. "When you get done, I expect a full report on how it went." Hermione rolled her eyes playfully in agreement. "You don't think it's too much, do you?" "No! Now stop freaking out. I have a good feeling about tonight." With that, Ginny left the head dorms, leaving Hermione to her own devices. Now all she had to do was wait, but it seemed like the clock had slowed down and 8 o'clock would never come. So while she waited, Hermione decided to reflect on everything that had happened this year. It was crazy. One little enchantment had caused so many problems, but also made so many opportunities. Never in a million years did Hermione think she would ever befriend Draco, let alone find herself having romantic feelings for him. Her mind wandered towards the future. If this date was successful, would they go on more? Would he ask her to be his girlfriend? Once again, Hermione felt as though she was acting like one of the cliché Muggle girls, but she couldn't help it. Her mind had an imagination of its own. Questions kept appearing on her train of thought. Would he accept her? Would her friends accept him? What if this all goes wrong? Would they continue to be friends? "Hermione," a voice said, snapping her out of her thoughts. Draco stood in front of her with a smirk plastered on his face. "Earth to Granger," he continued, waving his hand in front of her face. "Merlin, I know that I'm incredibly handsome, but I didn't think I'd render you speechless." Hermione rolled her eyes, a light blush tinting her cheeks. She couldn't believe she had spaced out. Draco held his hand out to help her up from the couch. "You look beautiful, Miss Granger," he said, dramatically kissing her hand. "You're such a romantic, Mr. Malfoy," she laughed sarcastically. Draco smiled. "Are you ready?" "Yes." She didn't know where they were going as they traveled up countless flights of stairs, but she was glad she didn't wear heels. She could only imagine how many blisters she would have had if she did. When they finally made it to the top of the floor in the castle, Draco led her to a room. He then pulled out his wand and muttered out a spell, which made a small ladder fall from the ceiling. "Ladies first." She climbed up the ladder, Draco following right after. When she reached the top, she gasped in delight, for they were sitting on the tallest roof of Hogwarts with the prettiest view of the stars she had ever seen. There was already a blanket there they would sit on with a small basket on top. Draco joined her on the roof and led her to the blanket. "What do you think?" he asked after they sat down. "It's beautiful," she answered, looking up at the many stars. Each one was so close, she felt that if she reached out, she'd be able to touch them. Draco smiled as he watched her, congratulating himself on a job well done. It had took him hours trying to find the perfect place to take Hermione. His first thoughts were a fancy restaurant he knew, but none of it felt right. Hermione was the type of girl who was down to earth. He figured she should like this better. Draco rose his wand, pointing at a certain star. He followed it in a pattern, connecting the dots one by one. "Do you know which constellation that is?" "Draco," she said with a smile. "How did you know that?" he asked. "I guessed, but knowing you, it would probably be the only one you would point out." "I'm flattered you know me so well." And so they sat up on the roof, drawing out different constellations with their wands and teasing each other. They stayed out for a good 2 hours before they got cold and had to retire. Like the gentleman he was, Draco walked Hermione to her side of the headrooms before pulling her in for a kiss. "Sleep well, Hermione," he had whispered before going to his side, leaving Hermione breathless. She had to admit that it had been one of the best dates she had ever been on. She couldn't wait to tell Ginny about it in the morning. The end. So, this was the final episode of this fanfiction. I hope that you enjoyed it, and if you have any suggestions for other fanfictions you would like for me to read, then please comment them down below or message me directly. And yeah, I hope that you subscribe and stay on this journey with me. Have a nice day. Bye.